So, having said all that and made the introductions, what I'd love to do is have each of our panelists introduce themselves. Christy, we can start with you and go down the line.
Sure.
Just press it up.
All right, can everyone hear me? I'm Christy Taney, and I'm Vice President of Policy and Legal Communications for Qualcomm. We're headquartered in San Diego. Do you want me to do a short introduction now, or? All right. So, how many of you have a cell phone? And how many of you like to use your phone in airplane mode? Maybe a couple. Well, if you, we actually have the patent on airplane mode, but when you're using your phone not in airplane mode, basically connected to the internet, my company enabled that. So we are the technology behind 3G, 4G, and 5G technologies. And if you get a chance, I highly encourage you to visit the National Inventors Hall of Fame museum upstairs. Our founder was inducted in 2013 and for his pioneering work in CDMA. So we are all about patents and invention, and I'm thrilled to be here today, Warren, so thank you for having me.
Great. We'll kind of come back and fill in a little bit on that a little bit more, but thanks for that. Gillian?
Hey, everyone. Can you hear me? Great. My name is Gillian Fenton, and I'm currently the founder of a new solo law practice specializing in life science transactions. Up until this spring, I was in-house counsel at GlaxoSmithKline in the vaccines area. So, and that's something that had been kind of the culmination of 30-odd year career as first a patent lawyer and then a business development and transactions lawyer. So I've always been in the life sciences sector, and I guess I'm kind of the industrial counterpoint to Christy. Thank you.
James?
Hi, I'm James Howard, the Executive Director of Black Inventors Hall of Fame and Black Inventors Hall of Fame History Museum. And as Warren made note, I serve on the Pro Bono Advisory Council with him, committee with him. And what gets me up each morning is to have the opportunity to mentor aspiring inventors and innovators. And I happen to have a couple of those, my mentees in the audience right now. And so I'm delighted to be here with you.
Awesome. So this is a, I don't know if you guys realize, this is a superstar panel. And so we're very excited. So what I'd like to do is we'll go up and down the line here. But Christy, I'd like to fill in a little bit. One of the amazing things, Qualcomm today is what, a $60 billion company. And it's, or more.
A bit bigger than that,
Oh,
about 200 billion.
Oh my God! How could I be that far off? But anyway, it's a huge company. But it started with an individual. And maybe you could just tell us, just inspirationally, the story of that and how it got started.
So as I was thinking about preparing for today, I think for this particular group, the one big thing I think is really important for you all to remember is that one idea can become a big $200 billion company. And I mentioned our founder, Irwin Jacobs, who still lives in San Diego. He's 93. And his presence looms large across all of our campuses. And he was a professor at MIT. He eventually wrote the book on wireless communications theory, which is still taught in all engineering schools today. So he really did write the book on our industry. And he came to San Diego in 1963 to be one of the founding professors at the University of California, San Diego, and put his 4 boys in a VW van, drove across the country, and bought a house in La Jolla that he still lives in to this day. And he started doing some consulting work for the government and obviously was extremely interested in communications theory. He had that sort of classic bolt of lightning idea hit him driving down the 405 one day, and it occurred to him that CDMA technology, which had really been pioneered by Hedy Lamarr in the 30s, which there's a great movie about that if you're interested, that could be applied to cellular communications. And it's a long story that many of you as inventors go through about having an idea. Lots of people in the industry told him it was physically impossible to do what he was suggesting. He stuck with it, he filed patents, and eventually CDMA technology became the backbone of all wireless communications globally. So it really hit the map with 3G, which hopefully all of you in this room are not too young to remember 3G. But our technology really became the basis for all 3G, 4G, and 5G technology globally. So it's had a massive impact on the world. And Irwin was a modest guy who came from very humble beginnings. His parents owned a restaurant in New Bedford, Massachusetts. They lived upstairs from the restaurant. And legend has it that he went to Cornell to study hospitality. Cornell obviously has a super famous hospitality program. His roommate was studying engineering and gave him quite a bit of grief about how all his hospitality classes were not quite as hard as the engineering courses. And so Irwin switched to engineering, and the rest is history. So we're all very proud of the work he did. As I mentioned, he was inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame in 2013, got to meet the patent examiner who had approved the patent that became the cornerstone for all global communications. And Irwin's wife was in the room when the patent examiner came down, and we took a bunch of pictures, and she whispered to me, she said, "I think Irwin got the better half of that deal." So anyway, it's a great story.
Great. So does Qualcomm believe in strong patents?
We do. It's as I mentioned, one idea can become a big company. And Qualcomm would not be a company, and I don't think wireless communications and our ability to share information with each other in a split second anywhere in the world would be where it is if it weren't for the patent system. So it was Irwin having those patents that enabled him to attract investment. And it was investment that enabled us to continue doing research and development that has led to the advancement of wireless communications into all kinds of new areas. I mean, in 10 years from now, your car will become as much a part of your communications experience as your cell phone. And that will continue to proliferate into lots of other areas. It wouldn't happen, though, if we didn't get the revenue that we do from licensing our patents. And that's a little bit longer story, which I don't have time to go into here today, but our company generates about $6 billion a year in licensing revenue. And that licensing revenue, a big chunk of it gets pumped back into our research and development programs and enables us to invent new things, which we hope is frankly making the world a better place. And we would not be able to secure that revenue if we weren't able to get patents and enforce those patents. And those are two equally important sides of the same coin. So yes, I wouldn't be sitting here today, and our company wouldn't exist without the patent system. So we believed in it in the early days. We feel the same exact way about it now that we're a huge company with over 160,000 patents granted worldwide.
Great, awesome. So Gillian, so tell the group and those who are watching a little bit about the Licensing Executive Society. I know you've had a lot of involvement there. And just a little bit maybe specifically about some of the things you've done there and how you use that to proliferate, again, IP and get the word out.
Well, sure thing, thanks. Back when I was still a law student and had just switched careers, leaving the lab and becoming a patent intern at a patent boutique up in Massachusetts, Hamilton, Brooks, Smith & Reynolds. One of the guys who was of counsel there was the retired general counsel of Gillette. And he took those of us who were young squirts at the time under his wing and said, well, you all need to understand what's the business of working with patents and other kinds of intellectual property. And he took us to our first Boston chapter meeting of the Licensing Executive Society. So I have been a member of the Licensing Executive Society since 1990, and it's been a wonderful, wonderful professional association, very supportive. It's the only one that I'm aware of out there, possibly except for Autumn, was always founded to be cross-disciplinary. So it's not just lawyers, it's not just patent lawyers, it's both of those, and business development folk and in-house folk of all kinds, from marketing through finance. It's basically composed of all the professions who come together to do a licensing deal or other type of intellectual property-based transaction. And it's a really vibrant community. The largest chapter of LES International is right here, the USA and Canada chapter, but LES International actually covers 33 sister societies in other countries and regions around the world. So you're automatically plugged into a very highly networked and very friendly and welcoming international community as well.
So I'm sure there's lots of lawyers involved, attorneys involved. What about on the inventor side? How could they participate? Are there events? Are there state organizations?
We do have a committee on small business and entrepreneurs, and we're very interested in developing that committee further. I say I rotated off the board in 2022 of LES, but previously I was involved at the board level. And we're very interested in nurturing and growing small businesses and individual inventors and getting them on the path of understanding how intellectual property can be used as an asset to help grow their business.
Awesome, awesome. So James, if we can move down to your end, you're an inventor yourself. You advise a lot of inventors. Give us a little of your core philosophy on what you tell inventors and what's important to them, and maybe you could just end this particular question with what advice you get on them working with larger companies.
Excellent. I'm going to introduce something that I'm saying for the very first time to an audience. And I'm speaking specifically to your aspiring inventors and those who are on the patent path. Confidence, right? Be confident and be informed. So I'm going to share with you the Adrian Smith model of exuding confidence and being informed. Adrian is the face of women's tackle football. She actually has more patents than Tom Brady. I mean, more patents. Listen to me. She has more rings than Tom. Wrong finger, James. More rings than Tom Brady. But this is a young lady who took her ingenuity as a football player and wanted to parlay that into an educational toy item. So she invented this card game called Blitz Champs. And she pursued a patent on it, but she didn't know what to do with it. So here's where the confidence and being informed becomes important. Find out, whatever your product is, find out who's already succeeded in it, and go to that individual in confidence and ask them to sit on your mentoring board. Assemble your own mentoring board. The way Adrian came to me, I brought in Lonnie Johnson, and then I brought in Ken Johnson. Adrian's game is a card game, so Ken Johnson owns the second most popular selling card game in the world, second only to Uno, and that's Phase 10. We all know Lonnie's accomplishments, right? So we combine that.
That's the Super Soaker,
That's
by
the
the way.
Super Soaker, precisely. So we combine that with these three wise men that Adrian would tap into every time, and as she's talking about how to get her product licensed, she's doing it with confidence. She's doing it with being informed. And to make a very long story short, Adrian now has a licensing deal with, listen to this, the NFL, Barnes & Noble, and Walmart, all because she started a conversation with three wise men. So assemble. Don't be afraid to ask. I don't want to put any patent attorneys out of work out there, but you don't have to run to a patent attorney first, okay? Get your NDA, be prudent, be guarded, but be optimistic. Go into the relationship with a positive mindset, right? And project your interests with enthusiasm and conviction. And your enthusiasm and conviction will resonate with companies. But you're going to do it because you're informed and you're confident, and you'll succeed. This is how I address the dozens upon dozens of mentees that, again, bring me fulfillment each and every day as I wake up.
Now,
So,
James, you when you help people, some of them might go to a bigger company.
mm-hmm.
Sometimes they take it to market themselves, right?
Mhm.
It's both. What percentage would you say? Is it 50-50, or do more people license?
I would think that they go into this process, believing that licensing is perhaps their only option. And oftentimes they try that route and then they, I hate to use this word, they fail, because anytime I use that word, I always encourage people to fail and fall forward, right? And one act of falling forward is they then go the entrepreneurial route and try it on their own. So I'd say, yes, it's I think the experience is definitely 50-50. The fallout from that really has a lot to do with your own characteristic and, what you're made of.
Sure, great. Well, thanks for all you do to help people. And everybody up here loves helping people, so make sure you find those folks. But Christy, can I circle back to you? So I know you do a lot of things to help the inventor community, and maybe some people don't know that you're the person behind it sometimes, which is just fine. But maybe talk a little bit about what you guys do and what you try to, what information you try to put out there for people.
One of the things I think we have tried to do, and full disclosure, there are multiple benefits to this. We know as a company that the patent system is an incredible tool for expanding opportunity, economic opportunity, that it creates jobs, that communities, it's well documented by economists that communities that have high patenting rates have higher standards of living. So the wonderful thing, one of the many wonderful things about the patent system is that it is a pie you can just keep growing bigger and bigger and bigger. Really, anybody can participate. And the barriers to entry should be as low as possible. In about 2015, we started doing some of the very first research that looked at who actually is filing patents in the United States. And I'm sure you may not be surprised to hear this, but the number of women whose names are on patents is, it's like 13%. And the numbers for people of color are single digits. So it became obvious to us. I think people sort of felt like this was the case anecdotally, but we started to generate some research and partner with some really great institutions to put some numbers to it, and start to make the case that we needed to do more to bring more people from underrepresented groups into the patent system. And again, this is a pie that we can all grow as big as we want. So we know that only good things will come of it, and we know from our research that if more women and more people of color start patenting, we can add up to $1 trillion to US GDP. It really is massive, the opportunity that's out in front of us. And even today, IP-related industries, so patents, copyrights, and trademarks, we know are about 40% of the US economy, and that number is getting bigger all the time. So there really is the opportunity for us if we just can find ways to bring more people into the system. So long story short, Qualcomm developed a program. This was, I won't say there are any silver linings to COVID, but this happened to be something that a bunch of us started working on during COVID, and it's called the Inventors Patent Academy. We'd been running some similar programs in India and other places where we were trying to kickstart innovation. And we thought, we're doing this in other countries, we should be doing this in the US. So we built from the ground up, the very first of its kind, a tool that is free. Anybody can access it online. I would encourage all of you to sign up and take the course. It's called the Inventors Patent Academy, and it's a step-by-step process. Walks you through the whole patenting process. And it's designed for people who are not already widely reflected in the patent system. So our hope is that you will see people in this program who look and sound like you and have had similar experiences, and that this tool will give you the confidence that you need, or arm you with the information that you need to really start your journey as an inventor. We've had to bring some of those programs in-house at Qualcomm too. Part of going through this process was looking at our own numbers, which, again, full disclosure, we're pretty much the same as what we see across the population. So we've got work to do in-house too. One thing that I thought was super interesting when we were doing this research is that women, for example, if they get that first rejection notice from the patent office, they take it much harder than men do. So I'm seeing some nods in the audience. So I think understanding that women receive information differently than men do is a really key learning, and we need to understand that, particularly if you're going to become an inventor, because success and failure, acceptance and rejection are part of the process. So that's just one example of some of the information that you'll find in our Inventors Patent Academy program. So again, would love for you all to take the class.
That's great. And let me point out, first of all, I'm going to segue for a second. Jim Patterson, can you stand up for a second? Jim is the chair of the Pro Bono Advisory Council, a nonprofit organization that works closely with the Patent Office to advance the interests of folks that don't, that are, I should say, at or near the poverty line, or 40% over the poverty line, that otherwise might have a hard time gaining access to intellectual property and patents. Jim is really, I call him the Nelson Mandela of the pro bono program, because he started it. He was the one that got Lloyd's of London to back it with insurance. And I will say that James and Christy and I all serve and helping Jim on the board of pro bono. So thanks for bringing that up. And it's something that we want to continue to certainly pursue. So appreciate your help.
Can I just add, I forgot to mention, we were joking that this is a mouthful before the panel, but you can actually find, we call it TIPA, on the USPTO website. And we're very proud that it's been included in the First Time Filer Expedited Examination Pilot Program. I got it right. So you can find it there, or you can also find it at inventtogether.org.
Yeah, and I'm going to come back and ask you more questions about that in a bit. But Gillian, getting back to, I'm very involved in the open innovation arena, running open innovation programs for several companies and trying to connect individuals with companies. Can you tell from your experience, either personal or with the firms you've been, or LES, some maybe examples or some of your philosophy on bringing individuals together with larger companies, if you've had a success story or whatever there?
Sure thing, sure thing. In the life sciences, we tend to see maybe a little bit fewer true garage inventors and a lot more folks who are coming out of scientific laboratories. And that's just simply the nature of the beast. But I've seen a lot of people who've come out of universities and federal laboratories who have learned that they have a great invention. And one of the nice things about the way the Bayh-Dole Act operates, and it's an act that covers the licensing of federally funded and federally owned patent rights, is that the inventors will personally receive a fraction of royalties that come back to their institution from the licensing of their intellectual property, which is a great way of aligning everyone's incentives towards success. I guess other than that, I've worked for a whole range of companies. The first company that I worked for in the biotech ecosystem was the Genetics Institute, which was a spin-out from Harvard University of two of the guys who wrote the book on gene cloning back in the day. And I joined when it was, I would say, in its late startup phase, under 100 employees, and 8.5 years later, it had about 900 employees. So I've seen that small companies can rapidly grow to being large ones.
So that's really interesting to me. So when you start talking Harvard and MIT and which we've heard today, and some of these pretty sophisticated, forms of innovation, it really, universities are involved, right? So they help, but then do they help also raise capital and so forth? How does that work if someone goes beyond that? I know you get your start there, but what's the next step?
That actually is a relatively new and rapidly evolving part of the inventor support and entrepreneurial ecosystem. Yeah, universities and states actually have invested a lot in developing accelerator and incubator facilities. State of Maryland has some very well-known ones. University of Maryland system has some really great accelerator space. In Baltimore, Greater Baltimore, Johns Hopkins also. But the thing to bear in mind is once you're starting as an academic scientist, let's just say, to develop your own intellectual property, at some point you're going to find yourself adverse to your employer, the university, and you're going to need your own support team, your own counsel. You're going to need to probably negotiate an in-license of your intellectual property from the university so that you can use it to found your business on. And that's, a lot of those relationships are where people start to turn to organizations like LES to learn how does that ecosystem work and how to do that.
Awesome. And I'm gonna add a plug for the NAI, which is the National Academy of Inventors, which is based in Tampa, Florida. They have over 200 universities in their program, and they have a lot of inventor outreach programs. So if any of you are students who are watching today or go that sort of high-tech route, there's some resources for you there, so thank you. So James, I want to come back to you now. I want to pine down a little bit on pro bono, and I really want to talk about people who need help, who have, don't necessarily have friends and family that right at the bat or can raise capital. How do you get started? How do you mentor folks, and how do you help folks?
First thing I do, whoops, got that little handy companion. The first thing I do is to let people know that do not let your financial status define you, and don't let your lack of funds deter you. If you have something within you that is innovative and you just have to get it out, right, let that be your equity and move forward with that. But that's actually a tricky issue with inventors, Warren. They are, regardless of background, they all share this me against the world approach to funding. Like it's the hardest thing in the world to achieve and to grab, right? I suggest approaching it more of a me and the world of opportunity that's at my feet, right? And so you go in it with that mindset and you simply find ways. You discover that long lost uncle who lives 200 miles up the road, right? You listen to that wise old person in the diner that you overheard a conversation on about, where you can go and maybe have a conversation with a SCORE representative, or you can apply for an SBIR grant or something like that. You stay open to all the positives, not the negatives, the positives as to what's available to you. And trust me, there are programs out there. You just have to do your research. And if you don't know, again, go back to your mentor group, which I want you to assemble. There are so many of us out there that want to help you, but you got to make the first move, right? So I suggest to inventors, be vigilant in seeking funding. Start at the bottom with relationships, uncles, brothers, relatives, right? And if you happen to have a rich uncle, that doesn't hurt, right? But if you don't, seek all avenues. Banks get excited. Every time I go in my bank, my manager gets excited about what I'm working on. He always wants to talk about my latest project and everything, right? So have these conversations. Your enthusiasm will trust me, it will make a lot of difference. And so, seek all avenues from banks, investors, SBR, government SBA loans, business loans. Keep it positive, right? Always approach it. The glass is half full. And when you run into obstacles that you consider failure or you feel you're falling, fall forward. And there is absolutely nothing, I kid you not, all of you aspiring inventors, there's nothing you can achieve, right, when you adopt the proper mindset to just push forward. You don't want to be naive, although, trust me, a little naivety isn't too bad, and I'll tell you why. Because if you have just a tad of naivety, it helps to overcome the fear, right? It helps to overcome the fear that this just isn't going to happen. But balance that. It's all about a mindset, Warren. I'm all about mindsets. It's not easy, don't get me wrong, but it should be a positive experience. And no one can determine that more than you.
You're so inspirational. I could run through a wall for you. How'd your football team do this year? That's great. So we'll do one more quick. I don't know. We have a few more minutes. Christy, can you just talk about Inventor Project with you just for a bit and fill us in?
The Inventors Patent Academy. So as I mentioned, this is a tool that you can access online, and you can take the class for free. You can do it at your own pace. And I think we've had over 2,000 people take the course so far. We just launched it a couple of years ago. So it's really getting off the ground. We're now starting to take that program to some universities to see if we can get it included in the curriculum at some schools. We can get to inventors just a little bit earlier. You know, another interesting stat about the inventor community that I think is something that is further evidence that it maybe needs to expand is that the kids who are born to the top 1% socioeconomic class are 10 times more likely to become an inventor than the other 99%. And so this sort of gets to your point about having the right mindset. There is money available. There are networking opportunities you can take advantage of. The opportunities are there if you know where to go find them. So the TIPA course is a good way to start that journey. The PTO has so many resources on its website too that inventors can access. And I will give a plug to TIPA because we tried to build it in such a way that it would be really easy, frankly, and really clear, and would enable you to kind of sift through some of the other information that's out there and kind of put it all in one place. And like I said, hear from a variety of different people about their own patenting journey, and hopefully that will resonate with you. But I think that's a good place to start. But again, this is a pie that we can grow as big as we want. We want to see more people in the system, and I wish all of you the best of luck. I mean, it really is true that one idea can become a big company. I see that every day at work. I mean, as you all know, inventors are kind of a unique ilk. It's a unique group of people who really do believe that the impossible is possible. And so it's just oftentimes a matter of finding the information and finding your people that can help you along that way. So if any of you happen to take the TIPA class and you have feedback for us, we'd love to hear that too. So hope you'll try it out.
Well, thank you. And I know we only have a little bit of time. But Gillian, real quick, with all your background, knowledge, history, experience, going forward, where do you see challenges in IP and new product development in the future?
Well, thanks. Actually, I'll answer that from the LES, Licensing Executive Society perspective. We at LES applaud the USPTO for initiatives to bring more diverse people from a very wide variety of perspectives into the inventors community. That's a great mission. That's a really big, huge mission. LES is a much smaller organization than the USPTO. So how we hope to support that is LES has taken on the challenge of trying to bring in more diverse perspectives and people from all aspects of our society, persons of color as well, into the community of professionals who carry out intellectual property transactions and develop and manage intellectual property, because all those new inventors are going to be looking for a welcoming community, and we at LES are hoping to nurture that community going forward. We have two initiatives that we've embarked on so far, one with VentureWell and another with Kentucky Commercialization Ventures, and we're looking for additional opportunities to help expand our reach.
That's great. Thanks for all you're doing. Really appreciate it. And James, maybe would end with, I just want you to brag on for a minute about the Black Inventors Hall of Fame and all you've done to bring it to reality.
I'll keep it short. I started that journey 4 years ago when I came to the realization that there is something missing on the landscape of this country, and that is a museum dedicated exclusively to immortalizing the pioneering genius of African American inventors for the past 400 years, okay? And our friends just up the road, a few miles from here, chose not to devote that 410,000 square foot facility to telling that story, right? So I've taken it upon myself and my two boards that I have assembled to produce that. And right now we are in due diligence under contract to build a 110,000 square foot museum facility in West Orange, New Jersey. So there you are.
It's awesome. And Well, I think our time is up, but I really appreciate this panel.